The rain was relentless, hammering the roof of the old craftsman house like it wanted to break through. Inside, Ethan Caldwell sat frozen at the kitchen table, his son's words still ringing in his ears. "Dad, I'm gay." The confession had come like a lightning strike, splitting the quiet of their small-town Ohio life in two. Ethan's hands trembled as he clutched his coffee mug, the ceramic cold against his palms. Liam, his 17-year-old son, sat across from him, eyes wide and searching, waiting for a response that Ethan couldn't find. The weight of the moment pressed down, heavier than the storm outside, and all Ethan could think was how he'd failed to see this coming. He'd raised Liam alone since his wife, Sarah, died 10 years ago in a car accident. Ethan had thrown himself into being both parents, coaching Little League, teaching Liam to fix cars, and keeping their small auto shop afloat. He thought he knew his son every quirk, every dream but this. This was a blind spot, and it terrified him. Not because of who Liam was, but because Ethan knew the world waiting outside their door wasn't kind to boys like him. "Liam," Ethan finally said, voice rough, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" Liam's shoulders slumped, his dark hair falling over his eyes. "I didn't know how. I thought maybe you'd be ashamed." The words cut deeper than Ethan expected. Ashamed? No. Kid. Never. He reached across the table, hesitating before resting a hand on Liam's arm. I need time to process this. But I love you. That doesn't change." Liam's eyes glistened, but he nodded, a small smile breaking through. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to quiet. Ethan wanted to say more, to promise he'd protect Liam from every cruel word or judging stare. But a sharp knock at the front door shattered the moment. Ethan frowned. It was past 9, and no one in Willow Creek came calling this late. He stood, wiping his hands on his jeans, and crossed the living room to the door. The porch light flickered as he opened it, revealing a man standing in the rain, soaked to the bone. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and his eyes, those piercing green eyes Ethan hadn't seen in 25 years, locked onto him. "Daniel." Ethan's voice cracked. Daniel Harper, his high school best friend, his first love, stood there, holding a battered leather journal. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, almost lost in the rain. "I need to talk to you. It's important." Ethan's heart thudded, memories flooding back, stolen glances in the locker room, late-night talks by the lake, the kiss they'd never spoken of after Daniel left town without a word. Ethan had buried those feelings, built a life. But now Daniel was here, and the look in his eyes said he wasn't just passing through. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, stepping onto the porch, the cold rain biting his skin. Daniel hesitated, glancing at the journal in his hands. "I owe you the truth. About why I left. About everything." Behind Ethan, Liam appeared in the doorway, his expression wary. "Dad, who's this?" Ethan's mouth went dry. He didn't know how to explain Daniel, not to Liam, not to himself. But as Daniel's gaze flicked to Liam, something shifted in his expression, a flicker of recognition that made Ethan's stomach twist. "Ethan," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something you need to know. About me. About us." The rain kept falling, but Ethan felt like the world had stopped. His son's confession, Daniel's return, and now a secret threatening to unravel everything. It was too much. He didn't know what Daniel was about to say, but he knew it would change their lives forever. Inside, The kitchen clock ticked on, oblivious to the storm brewing in their home. Ethan gestured for Daniel to come inside, his mind racing. He'd spent years keeping his past locked away, but now it was standing on his porch, dripping wet and holding answers he wasn't sure he wanted. "Liam, go to your room," Ethan said, not taking his eyes off Daniel. "But, Dad, now." Liam hesitated, then retreated, leaving Ethan and Daniel alone in the dim light of the living room. Daniel set the journal on the coffee table, its worn cover catching the lamplight. "I didn't want to come back like this," he said, "but I couldn't stay away anymore." Ethan's chest tightened. "What's in the journal, Daniel?" Daniel's eyes met his, raw and unguarded. "The truth about why I left, and why I never stopped loving you." Ethan staggered back, the words hitting like a punch. He'd built walls around that part of his heart, convinced himself it was a phase, a mistake. But Daniel's presence, his voice, the weight of that journal, it was all too real. "Start talking," Ethan said, his voice low and unsteady. "And don't leave anything out." Daniel nodded, sitting on the couch, his hands trembling as he opened the journal. "It starts back in '98, the summer we turned 18, as Daniel began." Ethan felt the years peel away, pulling him back to a time when love was a secret he couldn't keep and a wound he couldn't heal. He didn't know what Daniel's truth would cost Heimer Liam, but he couldn't turn away. Not now. Not ever. Daniel's voice was steady, but his hands shook as he turned the pages of the journal. The living room felt smaller now, the air thick with the weight of unspoken history. Ethan stood by the window, arms crossed, trying to anchor himself against the flood of memories Daniel's presence unleashed. "Summer of '98, Daniel began, his eyes fixed on the journal. "We were inseparable. You, me, the lake, those late-night drives. You remember the night we kissed." Ethan's throat tightened. He remembered it too, while the fireflies, the warm breeze, the way Daniel's lips had felt like a promise and a betrayal all at once. "Yeah," he said gruffly. "I remember." Daniel's gaze softened, but there was pain there too. "I didn't leave because I wanted to, Ethan. I left because I had to." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You didn't say goodbye. You didn't say anything. One day you were there. The next you were gone." I thought he stopped. The hurt still raw after all these years. "You thought I didn't care," Daniel finished. "I know. But I cared too much. My dad found out about us. He saw us that night by the lake. He gave me an ultimatum: leave town or he'd make sure everyone knew. He said he'd ruin you, your family, everything." Ethan's breath caught. He'd always wondered why Daniel vanished, but he'd never imagined this. "Your dad. He knew." Daniel nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of the journal. "He caught us holding hands. Saw the way I looked at you. He called it a sin. Said I'd destroy you if I stayed. I was 18. Ethan. Scared out of my mind. I thought leaving was the only way to protect you." The room spun. Ethan leaned against the wall, his mind reeling. All these years, he'd carried the pain of Daniel's abandonment, thinking it was his fault, that he wasn't enough. Now, the truth was uglier, more complicated. "You could have told me," he said, voice breaking. "I would have fought for you." "I know you would have," Daniel said, his eyes glistening. "That's why I couldn't tell you. You'd have taken on the whole town, and it would have broken you." Ethan wanted to be angry, to yell, but the sincerity in Daniel's voice stopped him. Instead, he sank into the armchair across from Daniel, rubbing his temples. So why come back now? After all this time? Daniel hesitated, his gaze dropping to the journal. Because I found something out. Something that changes everything. He opened the journal to a page marked with a folded letter. After I left, I tried to forget you. I moved to Chicago, started over. But I kept writing in this journal. Every day. About you. About us. A few months ago, I got a call from my mom. She was cleaning out Dad's old stuff after he passed. And she found this. He slid the letter across the coffee table. Ethan picked it up, his hands unsteady. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting sharp and angry Daniel's father's. It was addressed to Daniel, dated a week after he left Willow Creek. You made the right choice. Son, stay gone. Ethan's better off without you. But if you ever come back, I'll make sure he knows the truth about what you are. Ethan's stomach churned. He threatened you even after you left. That's not the worst of it, Daniel said, his voice barely audible. There's something else. Something my mom didn't tell me until recently. When I left, she was pregnant. I have a half-brother, Ethan. He's 17 now. And he's here, in Willow Creek. Ethan froze. Here. Daniel nodded, his eyes searching Ethan's. His name is Caleb. He's Liam's friend. The words hit like a freight train. Liam's friend Caleb. The quiet kid who'd been coming over lately. Always hanging out in Liam's room. Playing video games. Laughing. Ethan's mind raced, piecing it together. You're saying Caleb is your brother. Half-brother, Daniel corrected. Mom gave him up for adoption after he was born. She didn't tell me because she was ashamed. But when I found out, I had to come back. I had to see him. And I had to see you. Ethan's head was spinning. Liam's coming out. Daniel's return. And now there's a connection between their families that felt like fate playing a cruel trick. Does Caleb know? Not yet, Daniel said. I wanted to tell you first. I didn't know how you'd take it. Especially after everything. Ethan's thoughts drifted to Liam. Upstairs. Probably listening at the door. His son had just bared his soul. And now Ethan was grappling with a past he'd buried and a secret that tied their lives together in ways he couldn't comprehend. I need to talk to Liam, Ethan said, standing. He needs to know what's going on. Daniel grabbed his arm. His touch electric. Familiar. Ethan. Wait. There's more. I didn't just come back for Caleb. I came back for you. I never stopped loving you. And I need to know if there's still a chance for us. Ethan's heart stopped. He pulled away. The weight of Daniel's words too much to bear. You can't just walk back into my life and say that. Not after everything. Not with Liam. I know, Daniel said, his voice breaking. But I had to try. I had to tell you the truth. Ethan turned away, his chest tight. He didn't know what he felt: anger, longing, fear, but he knew he couldn't face it now. Not with Liam upstairs. Not with Caleb's existence tying their past to the present. I need time, Ethan said finally. Stay here tonight. We'll talk tomorrow. Daniel nodded, his eyes heavy with regret. Okay. I'll wait. As Ethan climbed the stairs to Liam's room, the journal sat on the coffee table, its pages holding secrets that could either heal them or tear them apart. He didn't know which. But he knew one thing: the truth was out. and there was no going back. Ethan paused outside Liam's door, the faint hum of music seeping through the wood. His hand hovered over the knob, the weight of Daniel's revelations pressing against his chest. How was he supposed to explain this to his son who'd just laid his heart bare? Trusting Ethan to hold it gently. He knocked softly, then pushed the door open. Liam was sprawled on his bed, earbuds in, staring at the ceiling. The room smelled of teenage chaos sneakers, energy drinks, and the faint tang of spray paint from Liam's art projects. He pulled out an earbud when he saw Ethan, sitting up. "Dad, everything okay?" Liam's voice was cautious, his eyes searching Ethan's face. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his hands together. "Not exactly, kid. That guy downstairs, his name's Daniel. We grew up together. He was important to me." Liam's brow furrowed. "Important how?" Ethan exhaled, the truth clawing its way out. "We were close. Closer than friends. Back in high school. But he left town, and I haven't seen him since. Until tonight." Liam's eyes widened, piecing it together. "You mean, you and him were, like me?" The question hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah. I loved him, Liam. But I never told anyone. Not even your mom." Liam leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you ever say anything? All this time. You were, like me, and you didn't tell me." "I didn't know how," Ethan admitted, his voice cracking. "Back then, it wasn't safe. People didn't talk about it. I thought I could bury it. Move on. I loved your mom, Liam. I built a life with her. With you. But seeing Daniel tonight, it's brought it all back." Liam's expression softened, but there was a flicker of hurt in his eyes. "So, what's he doing here? Why show up now?" Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to overwhelm Liam, but he couldn't lie not after everything. "He came to tell me about his half-brother, a kid named Caleb. Your friend." Liam's jaw dropped. "Caleb? Like my Caleb?" "The guy he stopped," his face flushing. Ethan's heart skipped. "The guy you what?" "Liam." Liam looked away, twisting the edge of his blanket. "I like him, Dad. Like, a lot. I didn't know how to tell you that part either." The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Ethan's mind raced. Caleb, Daniel's half-brother, was the boy Liam had feelings for. The coincidence felt like a cosmic joke, tying their past and present in a knot he couldn't untangle. "Does Caleb know how you feel?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice steady. Liam shook his head. "I was going to tell him. Tonight. Actually. But then you and I talked. And then that guy showed up. And I don't know what to do now." Ethan reached out, squeezing Liam's shoulder. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight. But we need to talk to Caleb. And Daniel. There's a lot we all need to understand." Liam nodded, but his eyes were distant, like he was carrying the weight of his own secrets. Ethan wanted to pull him close, to promise everything would be okay. But he didn't know if it would. Not yet. Downstairs, Daniel was still on the couch, the journal open in his lap. Ethan sent Liam to bed, promising they'd talk more in the morning. When he returned to the living room, Daniel looked up, his face etched with exhaustion. "How'd he take it?" Daniel asked. "He's overwhelmed," Ethan said, sitting across from him. "He's got his own stuff going on. And now this. It's a lot. Daniel nodded, his fingers tracing the journal's spine. I didn't mean to turn your life upside down. I couldn't keep running from the truth. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. What do you want? Daniel. Really? You come back after 25 years. Drop all this on Mayor brother. Your feelings. Everything. What am I supposed to do with that? Daniel's eyes met his, raw and pleading. I want a chance to make things right. For you. For me. For Caleb. I know I hurt you when I left. I hurt myself too. But I'm here now. And I'm not running anymore. Ethan's chest ached. He wanted to believe Daniel, to let himself feel the pull that had never fully gone away. But he had Liam to think about. And Caleb. And a town that wouldn't take kindly to their past or their present. Stay in the guest room tonight, Ethan said finally. We'll figure out what to do about Caleb tomorrow. But don't expect me to just open that door again. Not yet. Daniel nodded, his expression a mix of hope and resignation. Fair enough. I'll take whatever you're willing to give. As Ethan showed Daniel to the guest room, he couldn't shake the feeling that the journal held more than just Daniel's story. There were pages he hadn't seen, truths he wasn't ready for. But for now, he needed sleep, and he needed to be strong for Liam. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, the house quiet except for the creak of the floorboards. Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Daniel's words echoing in his mind. I never stopped loving you. He didn't know if he could trust those words, but he knew they'd changed something inside him, something he couldn't ignore. Tomorrow, he'd face Caleb, Liam, and the secrets that bound them. But tonight, he let himself remember the boy he'd loved, and the man who'd come back to claim a piece of his heart. Morning broke over Willow Creek, the sky a bruised gray, as if the storm hadn't fully let go. Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of clinking dishes downstairs. For a moment, he thought it was Sarah, her old habit of making breakfast before he got up. But reality crashed and Sarah was gone, and Daniel was in his house, stirring up a past he'd tried to forget. He found Daniel in the kitchen, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. The journal sat on the counter, closed but looming like a loaded gun. Daniel looked up, offering a hesitant smile. Figured you could use this. Ethan took the mug, the warmth grounding him. Thanks. Where's Liam? Still asleep, I think, Daniel said. I didn't want to wake him. Ethan nodded, sipping the coffee. It was strong, just how he liked it. And the familiarity of Daniel remembering that detail stung. We need to talk about Caleb, he said. Liam's got feelings for him. This whole thing gets complicated. Daniel's eyes widened, but he nodded. I figured it might be. Caleb's a good kid, from what my mom said. But he doesn't know about me. I don't even know how to start that conversation. Before Ethan could respond, Liam shuffled into the kitchen, his hair a mess, his eyes puffy from lack of sleep. Morning, he mumbled, grabbing a mug. He froze when he saw Daniel, tension crackling in the air. Liam, this is Daniel, Ethan said, his voice steady. We've got some things to talk about. Sit down. Liam hesitated, then sat, his gaze flicking between Ethan and Daniel. Ethan took a deep breath, laying out the truth as gently as he could. Daniel's past, his half-brother Caleb, the reason he'd left Willow Creek. Liam listened, his expression shifting from shock to something softer, more vulnerable. So, Caleb's your brother? Liam asked Daniel, his voice quiet. Does he know? Not yet, Daniel said. I wanted to talk to your dad first. But I'm going to tell him. I need to do it right. Liam nodded, his fingers tapping the table. He's my best friend. And I like him. A lot. If you hurt him, or mess this up, I'm not okay with that. Daniel's expression softened. I won't. I promise. Ethan watched the exchange, his heart aching. Liam's protectiveness, his openness, it was everything Ethan hadn't been at that age. He wanted to shield his son from the pain of love, from the judgment of their small town. But he knew he couldn't. Not entirely. I'm going to call Caleb, Liam said, standing. He needs to know what's going on. Ethan nodded, though his stomach twisted. Be careful, Liam. This is a lot for him to take in. Liam left the kitchen, his phone already in hand. Ethan turned to Daniel, his voice low. You're sure about this? Telling Caleb everything. I have to, Daniel said. He deserves to know who I am. And I owe it to him to be the brother I never got to be. Ethan rubbed his face, exhaustion settling in. This town, it's not what it was when we were kids. But it's still not easy. For Liam. For Caleb. For you. If people find out about you and me, about our past, it could make things harder for them. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes intense. I know. But I'm not hiding anymore. Ethan. I spent 25 years running from who I am. I'm done with that. The words hit Ethan hard, stirring something he'd buried long ago. He wanted to argue, to protect the life he'd built. But Daniel's resolve was unshakable. And deep down, Ethan envied it. An hour later, Caleb arrived, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his expression wary as he stepped into the house. He was a lanky kid with Daniel's green eyes, though he didn't know it yet. Liam stood beside him, a silent pillar of support. Mr. Caldwell, Caleb said, nodding at Ethan. Then his gaze landed on Daniel, and he frowned. Who's this? Daniel stood, his hands fidgeting. Caleb, I'm Daniel. I'm your half-brother. The room went silent. Caleb's eyes widened, his mouth opening, then closing. What? Daniel explained, his voice steady but gentle, laying out the story of their mother, the adoption, the years apart. Caleb listened, his face a mix of shock and disbelief. Liam stayed close, his hand brushing Caleb's arm, a quiet reassurance. When Daniel finished, Caleb sat down hard, staring at the floor. So, you're my brother. And you just show up now. I know it's a lot, Daniel said. I didn't know about you until a few months ago. I came as soon as I could. Caleb's eyes flicked to Liam, then back to Daniel. Does this mean you're like me? Like you're... He trailed off, unable to say the word. Daniel nodded. Yeah. I'm gay. I loved someone a long time ago, and I lost him because I was scared. I don't want to lose you too. Ethan's heart clenched. He saw the parallels, the pain of hiding, the fear of being seen. He wanted to say something, to bridge the gap between them all, but the words wouldn't come. Caleb stood, his voice shaking. I need to think. This is too much. He grabbed his backpack and headed for the door, Liam following close behind. Liam, Ethan called, but his son shook his head. I've got him. Dad. I'll make sure he's okay. As the door closed behind them, Ethan turned to Daniel, his emotions a tangled mess. What now? Daniel's eyes were steady, unwavering. We give them time, and we figure out what this means for us. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't know what us meant anymore. But the pull of Daniel's presence was undeniable, a thread connecting their past to a future he couldn't yet see. The auto shop was quiet that afternoon, the usual hum of tools replaced by the soft patter of rain on the tin roof. Ethan stood under a jacked-up Chevy, wrench in hand, but his mind was elsewhere in Liam, Caleb, and Daniel. The journal sat on his workbench, unopened but heavy with secrets he wasn't ready to face. He'd let Daniel stay, given him the guest room, but every moment in his presence felt like walking a tightrope. Ethan wanted to hate him for leaving, for coming back, for stirring up feelings he'd locked away. But the truth was, he couldn't. Not entirely. The shop door creaked open, and Liam stepped inside, his hoodie damp from the drizzle. Dad, we need to talk. Ethan set the wrench down, wiping his hands on a rag. Where's Caleb? He's at home, Liam said, his voice tight. He's freaking out. He didn't know he was adopted, let alone that he has a brother. And now he's worried about what it means for us. Ethan's chest tightened. You told him how you feel. Liam nodded, his cheeks flushing. Yeah. Last night, after he left here. He didn't say much. Just, he needs time. But I don't know how to help him. Ethan pulled Liam into a hug, something he hadn't done enough lately. You're doing your best, kid. That's all you can do. Caleb's got a lot to process, just like you did when you told me. Liam pulled back, his eyes searching. Dad, what about you and Daniel? I saw the way you looked at him. There's something there, isn't there? Ethan froze, the question cutting too close. It's complicated. Liam, Daniel and I, we have history. But I've got you to think about. And this town. Liam's expression hardened. You're always worried about this town. What about what you want? What about being happy? The words hit Ethan like a slap. He'd spent years putting Liam first, shielding him from the world's judgment. But maybe he'd been shielding himself too. I don't know what I want, he admitted. Not yet. Liam nodded, but there was a flicker of frustration in his eyes. Just, don't push him away because you're scared. I know what that feels like. Before Ethan could respond, the shop phone rang, shrill and insistent. He answered, expecting a customer, but it was Mrs. Harper, Daniel's mother. Her voice was frail, urgent. Ethan, is Daniel there? I need to talk to him. It's about Caleb. He's at the house, Ethan said, his stomach twisting. What's wrong? He's run off, she said, her voice breaking. Caleb's gone. He left a note saying he couldn't handle it finding out about Daniel, about the adoption. I'm worried he's not safe. Ethan's heart sank. He hung up, turning to Liam. Caleb's missing. We need to find him. Liam's face paled. Where would he go? Ethan grabbed his keys. You know him best. Think. Where does he go when he's upset? Liam's eyes lit up. The old mill. By the creek. He goes there to draw sometimes. They raced to the truck, the rain picking up again as they drove through Willow Creek's quiet streets. Ethan's mind was a storm of worry for Caleb, for Liam, for what this meant for them all. He glanced at Liam, who was texting furiously, probably trying to reach Caleb. When they reached the mill, it was deserted, the crumbling stone walls slick with rain. Liam called out, his voice echoing. "Caleb, you hear?" A faint rustle came from inside. Ethan followed Liam through the broken doorway, his flashlight cutting through the dim light. Caleb was huddled in a corner, his sketchbook open, his face streaked with tears. "Caleb," Liam said, rushing to him. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" Caleb looked up, his eyes red. "I didn't know what to say. Everything's messed up. I don't even know who I am anymore." Ethan crouched beside him, his voice gentle. "You're still you, Caleb. Finding out about Daniel, about your adoption, it doesn't change that." Caleb shook his head. "It changes everything. My parents lied to me. And now I've got a brother I never knew about. And he's like me. It's too much." Liam took Caleb's hand, his voice steady. "You're not alone in this. I'm here. My dad's here. Daniel wants to be here too." Ethan watched them, his heart swelling with pride for Liam's strength. He stood, giving them space, and called Daniel. "We found him. He's at the old mill. You should come." Daniel arrived 20 minutes later, his face pale but determined. He knelt beside Caleb, his voice soft. "I'm sorry I dropped this on you. I didn't know how to do it right. But I want to know you, Caleb. I want to be your family." Caleb's lip trembled, but he nodded. "I don't know what that means yet. But I'll try." As they walked back to the truck, Liam and Caleb side by side, Ethan fell into step with Daniel. "You did good back there," he said quietly. Daniel's eyes met his, a spark of hope in them. "So did you. You're a hell of a dad, Ethan." Ethan didn't respond, but the words warmed something inside him. The rain had stopped, and for the first time in days, he felt a flicker of clarity. He didn't have all the answers, but he had Liam, Caleb, and maybe just maybe chance to face his own truth. The next few days were a delicate dance of trust and tension. Caleb agreed to meet with Daniel again, this time at the Caldwell house, where Ethan could keep an eye on things. Liam was there too, his presence a quiet anchor for Caleb, who still seemed like he might bolt at any moment. Ethan watched from the sidelines, his heart torn between his son's courage and the ghosts of his own past. Daniel brought the journal, laying it open on the kitchen table. "I wrote everything in here," he told Caleb. "Every day after I left Willow Creek. It's not just about me and Ethan. It's about the life I wanted, the one I was too scared to fight for." Caleb flipped through the pages, his fingers lingering on sketches Daniel had drawn. Lakes, old cars, Ethan's face from memory. "You were really in love with him," Caleb said, his voice soft. Daniel nodded, glancing at Ethan. "I still am." Ethan's breath caught, but he stayed silent, busying himself with dishes at the sink. Liam shot him a look, one that said, "Don't run from this." But Ethan wasn't ready to face it, not in front of Caleb and Liam. Not yet. Instead, he focused on Caleb. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "To feel okay with all this." Caleb shrugged, his eyes on the journal. "I don't know. I'm still mad at my parents for not telling me I was adopted. And I'm trying to wrap my head around having a brother. But I don't want to push you away," he said to Daniel. "I just need time." "Take all the time you need," Daniel said. "I'm not going anywhere." That night, After Caleb left and Liam retreated to his room, Ethan and Daniel sat on the porch, the air cool and sharp. The journal sat between them, a silent witness to their shared history. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "You keep saying you're not running. But what does that mean?" "Daniel, you want to stay in Willow Creek. You want us." Daniel leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I want a life where I don't have to hide. I want to be here for Caleb, to be his brother. And yeah, Ethan, I want you. I know it's messy, and I know you've got Liam to think about, but I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel." Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to reach out, to touch Daniel's hand, but fear held him back. "I'm not that kid anymore," he said. "I've got a business, a son, a life here. If I let you in, and this town turns on us, it's not just me who pays the price. It's Liam too." Daniel's eyes softened. "I know, and I'd never ask you to risk that. But you're not alone in this. Liam's stronger than you think. And so are you." Ethan looked away, the stars blurring above him. He thought of Sarah, of the life they'd built, of the love he'd had for her. But he also thought of Daniel, the boy who'd made his heart race, the man who was here now, asking for a chance. The next day, Ethan took Liam and Caleb to the shop, letting them tinker with an old Mustang while he worked on paperwork. The boys' laughter filled the garage, a sound that eased the knot in Ethan's chest. He watched them, Liam showing Caleb how to change a spark plug, their hands brushing, their smile shy but real. When Daniel stopped by later, bringing lunch from the diner, Ethan saw the way Caleb's face lit up, tentative but hopeful. They ate together, the four of them, and for a moment, it felt like a family not perfect, not without cracks, but real. But Willow Creek wasn't a bubble. That afternoon, Ethan overheard a customer muttering to another at the shop, their voices low but sharp. "Heard that Harper guy's back. Always thought there was something off about him in Caldwell." The words were a cold reminder of the town's watchful eyes. Ethan didn't tell Daniel, but the comment lingered, a shadow over the fragile peace they'd built. That night, he found Liam in his room, sketching a portrait of Caleb. "You okay, kid?" Ethan asked. Liam nodded, setting his pencil down. "I think so. Caleb's coming around. He's talking to Daniel more. But Dad, what about you? Are you going to let yourself be happy?" Ethan sighed, sitting on the bed. "I'm trying, Liam. It's just hard. I spent so long hiding that part of me. I don't know how to let it out." Liam's eyes were steady, wise beyond his years. "You don't have to hide anymore. Not from me. Not from Caleb. And not from Daniel." Ethan's throat tightened. He pulled Liam into a hug, grateful for his son's heart, his strength. "When did you get so smart?" Liam grinned. "Runs in the family." As Ethan left the room, he knew he couldn't keep running from Danielle or from himself. But the fear of what lay ahead, of the town's judgment, of breaking Liam's trust, still gnawed at him. He needed to decide, and soon, what he was willing to fight for. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling of walls. Caleb started spending more time with Daniel, asking questions about their mother, their family, the life Daniel had led in Chicago. Ethan watched, amazed at how Daniel navigated Caleb's guarded heart with patience, never pushing too hard. Liam was there too, a bridge between them, his quiet support helping Caleb find his footing. But Ethan couldn't ignore the undercurrent of tension in Willow Creek. Whispers followed him at the diner, the gas station, the shop, old classmates, neighbors, even customers threw sidelong glances, their voices dropping when he walked by. Ethan knew what they were saying. Daniel's back. Ethan's spending too much time with him. What's going on in that house? He tried to brush it off, focusing on Liam and Caleb. But the weight of the town's eyes was suffocating. One evening, as he and Daniel worked on restoring an old Chevy in the shop, Ethan finally broke. They're talking. Daniel. About us. About what we were. Daniel set down his wrench, his face serious. Let them talk. They don't know us. But they know Liam, Ethan said, his voice tight. And Caleb. If this gets out, it's not just us who'll take the hit. Kids can be cruel. So can adults. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low. I know you're scared. I am too. But we can't live for them. Ethan. We've got to live for ourselves. For Liam. For Caleb. Ethan's hands clenched. It's not that simple. You left. Daniel. You got to start over. I stayed. I built a life here. I can't just throw it away. I'm not asking you to, Daniel said, his eyes searching Ethan's. I'm asking you to let me in. To try. Before Ethan could respond, the shop door opened, and Liam burst in, his face pale. Dad, you need to come home. Now. Ethan's heart sank. What's wrong? It's Caleb, Liam said, breathless. He got into a fight at school. Some kids found out about him and me. And they said some awful stuff. He's at the house. But he's a mess. Ethan grabbed his keys. Daniel right behind him. They found Caleb on the couch, his lip bloody, his sketchbook clutched to his chest. Liam sat beside him, his arm around Caleb's shoulders, his own eyes red from crying. Caleb, what happened? Ethan asked, kneeling in front of him. Caleb's voice was shaky. They heard about Daniel. About you. They called us names. Said we're all the same. I tried to ignore them, but one of them pushed me, and I pushed back. Ethan's blood boiled, but he kept his voice calm. You're okay now. You're safe here. Daniel sat on Caleb's other side, his face etched with guilt. I'm sorry. Caleb. This is my fault. I didn't think. It's not your fault. Caleb cut in, his voice fierce. It's theirs. They don't get to decide who we are. Ethan looked at Caleb, then at Liam, and finally at Daniel. The anger, the fear, the love, it was all tangled together. But one thing was clear, they were in this together. We need to deal with this, Ethan said, standing. I'm going to the school tomorrow. This stops now. Liam nodded, his jaw set. I'm coming with you. Me too, Caleb said, his voice steadier now. Daniel hesitated, then spoke. I'll come too, if that's okay. Ethan met his eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. Yeah, it's okay. The next day, they walked into the principal's office as a unit. Ethan, Liam, Caleb, and Daniel. The principal, a stern woman named Mrs. Carter, listened as Ethan laid out what had happened, his voice calm but unyielding. Liam and Caleb spoke too, their words raw but resolute, refusing to be shamed. Mrs. Carter promised to address the bullying, to hold the other students accountable. But as they left, Ethan knew it wouldn't end there. Willow Creek was small, and memories were long. They'd face more battles, more whispers. That night, Ethan found Daniel on the porch, staring at the stars. "You didn't have to come today," Ethan said, sitting beside him. "But I'm glad you did." Daniel smiled. "A small, tired thing. I meant what I said. Ethan, I'm here. For Caleb. For Liam. For you. Whatever it takes." Ethan's heart thudded. He reached out, his hand finding Daniel's, their fingers intertwining. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a leap. "I don't know what this looks like," Ethan said, "but I'm willing to try." Daniel's eyes shone, and for the first time in days, Ethan felt like he could breathe. The road ahead was uncertain, but they'd face it together for hearts, bound by truth, stronger than the town's judgment. Spring came to Willow Creek, the air soft with the scent of blooming dogwoods. Ethan's house, once a quiet refuge for him and Liam, now hummed with life. Caleb was a regular fixture, his sketchbook always in hand, his laughter mingling with Liam's. Daniel, too, had become part of their rhythm, helping at the shop, cooking dinner, sharing stories that made Caleb light up and Liam roll his eyes. The town hadn't changed overnight. There were still whispers, pointed looks, customers who stopped coming to the shop. But there were allies to neighbors who smiled, teachers who checked in, a few brave souls who stood up when the gossip got too loud. Ethan learned to lean on them, to let go of the need to please everyone. One evening, as the four of them sat around the kitchen table, Daniel pulled out the journal. "I want to read something," he said, his voice steady. He opened to a page near the end, one Ethan hadn't seen. June 10th, 2024. "I'm going back to Willow Creek. I don't know what I'll find, but I know I can't keep running. Ethan, if you're reading this, I hope you can forgive me. I hope we can find a way to be us again." Ethan's throat tightened. He looked at Daniel, then at Liam and Caleb, who were watching, their faces soft with understanding. "You wrote that before you came back?" Ethan asked. Daniel nodded. "I was scared out of my mind, but I knew I had to try. For you. For Caleb. For me." Liam reached for Caleb's hand, their fingers lacing together. "I'm glad you did," he said. "It's not perfect, but it's better. Because of you." Caleb nodded, his eyes bright. "Yeah. I didn't think I wanted a brother, but I'm glad I've got you." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet certainty he hadn't known in years. He stood, crossing to Daniel, and took his hand. "I'm glad you came back too," he said, his voice low but sure. Daniel's smile was radiant, and for a moment, the world was just them four people, flawed and brave, building something new from the ashes of their past. The next day, Ethan took Daniel to the lake, the place where they'd first kissed all those years ago. The water was calm, reflecting the sky, and the air felt lighter than it had back then. They sat on the shore, the journal between them, its pages worn but cherished. "I don't know what the future looks like," Ethan said, his voice steady. "But I know I want you in it. I want us to figure it out together." Daniel leaned in, his lips brushing Ethan's, a kiss that felt like a promise kept. "Together," he said. Back at the house, Liam and Caleb were planning a school art project, their heads bent over sketches, their laughter filling the air. Ethan watched them from the doorway, Daniel's hand in his, and knew this was what mattered: the love they'd fought for, the family they'd built, the truth they'd claimed. Willow Creek would talk, judge, maybe even push back. But Ethan wasn't afraid anymore. He had Liam, Caleb, Daniela's family, his heart. And that was enough. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Ethan felt a peace he hadn't known since he was 18. Sitting by this same lake, dreaming of a life he thought he could never have. Now, that life was his, and he'd hold it tight, no matter what came next.